The year is 2013. It's announced that Rolling Thunder at Six Flags Great Adventure will be closing and replaced with the exciting new standout roller coaster Iron Thunder, an RMC hybrid dueling coaster with a Mobius loop, instantly raising the Great Adventure lineup to the best in the chain. No. The classic wooden coaster was instead torn down and replaced with a queue-line to the world's tallest drop ride. But what if it wasn't? This is What If, Coaster Edition. In 1979, coming off the incredibly popular editions of a pair of interlocking arrow shuttle loops, lightning loops, Six Flags was trying to continue to boost their new acquisition into a premier park of the New York and Philadelphia area. The solution? Build a massive set of dueling wooden roller coasters. Opening in 1979, each track was 3,200 feet long and featured a 96-foot drop, including multiple sets of airtime hills, some offset, some running evenly. Rolling Thunder was an absolute hit for guests. Now, fast forward 30 plus years or so, and Rolling Thunder has earned the terrible nickname of rotting lumber. The ride experience has significantly deteriorated over time, becoming one of the more rougher experiences in the park, and consistently featuring almost no wait time. With more modern coasters all around it, including the giant El Toro, the aging Woodie seems destined for the scrap pile, but it did have a shot at revival. In 2011, Six Flags hired Rocky Mountain Construction for their first ever Iron Horse conversion. Over Texas and Arlington would take Texas Giant and use steel topper track to completely alter and transform the ride experience. Now with sharp airtime, overbanks, and an exceptionally better ride experience, the chain was ready to bring these cheap but massive upgrades to rides across the country. RMC would end up installing the Iron Horse conversion at 7 of their parks by the year 2018, including the world-renowned Twisted Colossus at Magic Mountain. Now, the Mobius Loop dueling roller coaster was built from the famous Colossus. However, it seems very likely that the Icon wasn't the chain's first pick for a dueling RMC, but it was Rolling Thunder instead. Unfortunately, RMC informed the park that the East Coast roller coaster would need significant upgrades to the structure and couldn't support the conversion as is. Instead, the park scrapped the idea and has built the area to be Zumanjaro's Queue instead, likely opening the ride as a replacement option. However, in this timeline, the park has paid a little extra attention to the ride over the last decade or so, and RMC came in and worked their magic. This causing a major chain of alternate editions for not only Great Adventure, but the Six Flags chain in general. With RMC Rolling Thunder in place, the chain decides to hold off on Colossus' transition for a few years to see just how well that dueling concept works for RMC. After all, Magic Mountain knows just how tricky a prototype style attraction can be, looking back at rides like X2 from Arrow. Fast forward 3 years and Magic Mountain has only seen a kiddie coaster since Full Throttle debuted, so the park calls RMC back to finally upgrade the classic. But unfortunately, due to poor maintenance and fire damage from some of those rowdy teenagers, Colossus is deemed too weak to support the conversion and is announced to be closing permanently instead, but not before a replacement is named. Instead, RMC would bring in their wooden topper track to build a true heir to the Icon's throne from the ground up and debut Revenge of Colossus, a dual-track wooden hypercoaster featuring a pair of short layouts very similar to Goliath at Great America. Now, the park names each side a new name and markets them as separate experiences, and with Green Lantern still a park, they finally claim that elusive 20th roller coaster, even if enthusiasts are very quick to explain that it really is only one ride. Heading back to Great Adventure with their new standout edition and a 4D free spin up at New England, the chain decides to skip the coaster edition and ride their new hybrid wave for a little while. While the park finally does bring in a new edition in 2021, but it won't be Jersey Devil, at least not the upscale Raptor model. Instead, the back plot is renovated and turned into a mad dash in the woods on a premier multi-launch coaster. Finally replacing what the park lost in Batman and Robin, the new coaster features a full circuit and rounds out a top 5 of Iron Thunder, El Toro, Ka, and Nitro. Now, unfortunately for Six Flags New England, with the RMC set for a much closer park, the chain decides that Twisted Cyclone at Over, Georgia is more of a priority and a better fit for the time being, so they get the conversion before New England. The Joker clone installation is instead moved up a year or two, and the park waits until 2018 for Wicked Cyclone to finally come and save the park's lineup. Now, the biggest question remains, what happens to those second generation RMC Raptors that are said to come in Magic Mountain and Great Adventure? Instead, the chain looks to another premier park in the lineup, and while a launch coaster in Max Force is a great fit, in 2019 they decided to debut the Riddler's Revenge at Great America, the world's tallest, longest, and fastest single rail roller coaster. Moving on later, over in California with the other Topper Track coaster in the chain, and with Green Lantern's imminent removal in 2020, Magic Mountain pushes to keep 20 roller coasters in the park, and they're set to open Wonder Woman that year, but the pandemic delayed it to 2021. The chain feels the single rail coaster is different enough from the Topper Track wooden monsters in each park they built years earlier, and should serve as big promotional boost to the park. Now, the chain takes the plan for Max Force and shifts its location instead. The idea of replacing a pair of very aging boomerangs in Massachusetts floats around for a while, but executives point out the fresh 2018 RMC sitting in the park and decide to look elsewhere, to somewhere that hasn't seen an addition for quite a while. The original park in Arlington is instead chosen to be graced with this new attraction, with a bit more of a square layout design, and to take that future Aquaman plot and make some laps over the entrance route, completely altering the guest view entering the park at Six Flags Over Texas. As of 2021, Six Flags has announced their new dive coaster heading to Fiesta, Texas, but not much else in reality, as bigger investments handed down in 2018 to Magic Mountain, followed by the pandemic, have cut spending even more than in actuality today. The chain still sees most of the same projects built in different locations, with the exception of the massive wooden coaster in California now, but it seems like a more well-distributed wealth of attractions. All in all, coaster enthusiasts still complain the company should have RMC'd Colossus, and that having two boomerangs in one park next to each other is dumber than anything they've ever built in Roller Coaster Tycoon. Now, the chain still ignores parks like St. Louis, but just wait till you see what happens when Cedar Fair decided to replace Son of Beast with something other than a B&M invert. Now, this has been the first episode of What If Coaster Edition. Let me know what you think of this setup and the results. I always find it fun to really theorize and see what could have happened if a company had just waited a few years for a new model, or simply pushed a little bit harder and earlier for something else. Till next week, that's all from the shores of Island Coasters.